I'm an architect. I'm working in Eutropian, and we are publishing regularly on Cooperative City, which is a magazine which tries to bring forward cooperative dealing with space initiatives, grassroots initiatives from all around Europe. And I have to say, we don't have any stories from Turkey. So by the end of today, I want to have a few connections where we can gather information and good stories about Turkey. But first things first, how did we start? As I said, I'm just a regular architect. My colleagues are urban planners or also architects. We have also activists or journalists, communication managers, and so on in team. How did we come up with the idea for this this kind of organization and magazine? Back in school, back in university, we were very engaged in participative planning because we felt like if we just plan and someone builds the building and then someone else uses the building, so we would have a disconnect, and we felt like it doesn't have to be. I mean, we can talk about things, and we should give people the spaces they need to realize a dream world, to live the way how they want, and not so much how we want. So there was, when I was studying, a case in somewhere in Austria. The architect had similar values like us. He imagined a solar city which was energy-wise optimized. He wanted a community which had no fences, so the kids could play in the garden of the neighbor and so on. Everything was floating. But when the people started to move in, they built an alliance and said, no, we want our fence. But in the description of the whole site, it was written, there are no fences allowed. So they went really as far as to court to settle this disagreement. Even though it's against my values that we have closed borders, fences, and ownership things, I have to admit it's great that the people came together and solved this issue for themselves because they were the users. And this brought me somehow to realization we have to communicate more. Having our values, which might be eternal, which might be global even, as long as we don't work with the people, there will be never a change. If the people who live in those spaces apply what we preach, then things will continue the way how things were always, like in the last decades. So with this knowledge and mindset, we started, or at the parallel, in the same time, my colleagues too started to connect, and we were connecting with placemakers and so on. And there is an organization called Wonderland, and we were working on project spaces, which is basically bringing experts to a local site and try to profit from the experts' view, how to develop this site as a community, how to build it, how to finance it, how to organize it. And this was a very successful format for us because it brought me with Daniela and Levente together. And it was kind of like starting a new movement for us, because we are working now over 10 years together. And even though there were much more organizations, and we were also experts in other teams and so on, we somehow stick together because the values and the view to the future, the use of architecture somehow brought us together. And when we then had the possibility to open up a company, we called it Eutropian. Levent and Daniela started it, and now this is our team. So we have a bunch of people from different parts of Europe, and I'm working in Vienna with a smaller group, and this is a building which was vacant. It is supposed to be developed as housing, but the owners can't come together and solve their issues. So we are in interim rent since 2014. So it's a long process, and it's a very good thing for us because a lot of creative people have their own company there. They established it in front of us. So it gives us the possibility to understand how such spaces work and how the scene works. So it's a very good match. And then we have Daniela with also a smaller group in Rome. Also, this building is interim rent and rented from an architect. So we try to bring here a bit also the neighborhood together. There is, for instance, a print shop nearby. So we try also to feel a bit and work with the local initiatives. And this is something Jem should know. It's the architecture center in Budapest. This is not our team. So there are a lot of architects, urban planners, and so on working in the center, and Levente is one member of the center, and he uses the facilities there. It's a kind of interim use sub-rent condition as well in Budapest. So I wanted to highlight this because it's not only that we are preaching, it's good to share. It's also something, a culture we try to live day by day. And what do we do as Eutropian? We try to support everyone in opening spaces, empty, vacant spaces to community. And we do one specific topic for us is food and markets. We did a few researches about that. There's also a publication in Italian. So for us, this circular economy aspect and being able to have the local supply from the people, from the farmers, is very important in our opinion, and is one of the fundamentals where community is based on, and therefore it's an important topic for us. And then we also try, as said, we are very connected to the creatives scene in many cities, and we try to support everyone who wants to be socially active, wants to start entrepreneurship and is social minded. So it's a very wide field to work, but we believe it's the thing we want to support and spend our lifetime with. What do I mean if when I talk about spaces which are vacant? This was a vacant place in Budapest, and maybe you can see there the space is very high. It doesn't have too much square meters, but it's very high. Normal development process goes from top down. Someone decides, oh, this building is empty, or this place we want to redevelop, and then someone else comes and has a list of potential users. I worked once for Austrian rail company, and the list goes like Lidl, Hofer, Interspar, all big companies like supermarket chains or big office groups and so on. But in such lists, you would never have a circus or jongleurs who are looking for space. And this case is very important for us because this height of space is not relevant for many of us, but for the circus, it's something which is very, very important. And if you are not coming from the field, if you are not connected to the people who need space, then you will not find such renters or interim renters. So that's the reason why we believe this is something we have to force more and which we have to support more. As said, there is a publication in Italian. It's about markets in Rome. And we have also some other international examples in it, because markets were very basic public asset in our culture. So we had back in time our houses or farms or whatever, and it was more organized within our family and with our relatives. But at the market, we met other people. The markets were the places where ideas were shared, where goods were shared. And by losing this space of encountering others, to have this kind of interaction between people, we use much more than just buying goods, because you can buy goods in supermarkets, but that a supermarket is not a market. So that's the reason why this publication and research is very fundamental for us, and we love to work more in this field. What else do? We do advocacy. With this, we mean we try to understand what the needs are of civic organizations. That means we want to make sure that they are recognized by the decision makers. That can be regional, national, local, international, it doesn't matter. If their values and needs are recognized, we might get better programs, better financial tools to have more of those organizations. We advise and consult public administrations. So we work very close with decision makers and as said, administrations. But we work also with European institutions like UEA, Urbeck, and so on. This is for us this exchange, bringing people like Tiago, who has so much experience in community work and community-led development, bringing his perspectives together with decision makers, let's say from Budapest or from another city, is very crucial. This connection is somehow the fuel to be really sustainable and to continue our work, and that it can also spread. As said, Urbeck was a collaboration between different organizations. It's not active anymore, but we learned a lot how we can bring organizations, initiatives, and decision makers together. We are very often in alliances or in conferences with those decision makers, but sometimes also people who suggest programs for the EU or other organizations. So as said, UEA is Urban Innovative Action. We are in some projects as experts, so we are having insight into the projects, and so we can tell a lot about how these projects work. But also we are very close to the organization, so we can address the topics which are bothering the initiatives. Community management is, so to say, our main topic and main work. And very often we deal with the questions how to create value and capture it locally. I have been in one of those buildings maybe 2 decades ago, and it was used as hostel. There was nothing around it. Someone took the money, earned money. There was a little opportunity to get jobs, and then it was not used anymore. And now, after this COVID, we know all those places who are only dedicated to tourism, only dedicated to business, were the places which were empty, where else you have other places where it's so tight and you don't have public space. So very important for us is how do we create value and how can we capture it locally so we can, this created value has a benefit for the people there. We also very often have to deal with how do we create and develop capacity, and what kind of resources do we need and how can we increase the resources. Capacity could be like really thinking in terms of skills, but also in terms of having the financial resources to invest in a site or in a building so it can live longer and be productive or useful for for more people. A very important topic for us is how do we build, or what is our idea of a sustainable community? Because we see also a lot of projects which start very well because they are funded and so on, but after the funding period, it's not clear if it's going on for sure. So building a community which can sustain itself with the manpower or woman power, with the financial resources, with being in touch with the market, what the market needs, what the people around need, is a very complex task, and it needs to be addressed from the beginning on. You have to create these structures, this framework from the beginning, otherwise it will not be long living. As said, one topic is also to grow as a person, as an organization, or as an initiative beyond your skills, capacities in the beginning, to develop, to grow. And this is an example from Berlin, Holzmark. I'm sure you heard about it. And also, we don't want to that the places have less value after we enter the scene, right? We want to increase the real estate, but keep it for the community. It shouldn't be that initiatives like increase the value of a site and then they disappear due to different reasons, and the real estate company or the owner comes and makes the profit because it's such a nice neighborhood suddenly. So it's very important to address this values increase in an early stage, that we know how could the community, the neighborhood, benefit from that? How can the creators of the value benefit out of this? Yeah, and this is one of the topics, as said. Who benefits really from our investment? We bring on the side a lot of energy, love, resources, time, money, and how can it be long-term, and that we can be kind of like have a benefit out of this and increase our potentials in future, can do the same in other places, or stay on site and have the fruits of our investment. And one other topic is, if there is a value created, how do we make sure that this value is not extracted by others. It doesn't matter if it's organizations, if it's tourism or whatever. Gentrification might be the right word to keep in mind in this topic. We have to make sure that all the people who are in those regions, in those areas, are a part of the development. And we have to make sure that they stay there, that we don't have like a big problem in Lisbon, economy based on only tourism. And when the tourism is gone because of a crisis, the streets are empty, the cities are empty, there's no neighborhood, no people who help each other, but at other places you have no space. This is a very important topic also to in terms of diversity, that we keep in mind that we are people who need much more than just housing, just business, just tourism. We are people, and with the crisis we saw traveling between districts was restricted or not suggested. So we have to make sure that we have in a very close reach some place where we can work, where we can relax, where we can shop, where we can meet maybe also in distance other people and so on. And therefore, in places like Simmering, which is a district of Vienna, a typical workers district where a lot of the ground of the land is comparatively cheaper. So a lot of investors built their housing, and which is then pushing away the people who used to work there, the companies which are still alive, which is anyway difficult. They are pushed out because the land is so valuable that they can't produce anymore in our cities. So they are pushed out of the city, and we are having their luxurious houses and so on, and no one cares about the lost business, and no one cares about the longer distances that we create. Again, a single-use district, which is then housing or business or so. For us, a city, any kind of settlement is so complex, and we should make sure that all aspects of this community living is somehow provided in proximity, that we have our social centers, schools, workspace, housing, all hopefully in walking distance or cycling distance. Everything else, if we don't have this diversity in our neighborhoods, in our communities, we create more traffic, we create the need for more infrastructure, and we create certain hours or certain periods where those areas are then empty. What happens with school spaces after school? They are empty. What happens with business areas where you don't work on weekend or in the evenings and so on? So it's a loss of important values and resources, and we always grow as a city, as a settlement, bigger and bigger. But the question is, do we need that much space? Could we do more complex neighborhoods so we don't have to grow so much in square meter wise? So this is one of the fundamental questions which we try to address when we do our projects. And that, in our opinion, is only provided if we have many stakeholders, many people at the table who are discussing and bringing forward their needs. In community land trusts, it's a project which is mostly for housing, but there are also other models like Trias. You try to empower people who can't buy houses or who can't buy empty vacant building to be the creative user or so. You try to separate the building from the ground. So the trust or the bank buys the land, and the initiative, the house owner, owns then the building, and they never can sell without the consent of the other. So you have a partnership which is kind of like for life, and for the one has the benefit that it can own or operate a place which would be not possible with the income and the financial resources it has, and for the other it has a ground which can basically, hopefully, lose the value. So you kind of bring two needs together, and together you have the resources to compete in the very, very, very difficult market of real estate. Or there are organizations which lend directly to initiatives or NGOs. So you have the place, and then you are kind of like the bigger renter or owner of the place, and you kind of divide the uses to other organizations and bring them in. Very important is in all those structures that or governance models that you kind of create a flow, a circular economy. So whatever is invested can be, should be a benefit for the community. So when they have a benefit, they can capture more value, and you kind of have a collective benefit out of this collaboration. We had in a previous image Tiago from Lisbon, and this is his project. It's called Largo Residencias. I don't know if you had the chance to see one of the videos we shared on the invitation. This project is a building which is was a bordel, and it had a lot of problems in terms of in social aspect, but also people who were working there had almost no other means to earn money. So with the residencia, the hostel also incorporates artisan residency, has a cafe in the ground floor and a library and so on. So it brings a diverse group to the site, and it has also those tables and other, there are also other facilities to sit around. So it's also a kind of a community place where they try to support all the people who are in need. So they bring kind of like a tourism income back to the community who is working there, and connect with the people also with their artistic programs. So to address also like gentrification and so on with radio shows and so on. So it tries to not only gain money out of this hostel, but also tries to invest this income back into the community and be the important or the one of the cultural hubs which is important for this area, which is multicultural. Stara Tržnica in Bratislava is also a very diverse project. It was always a market, a closed market, but it was used by sub-renters. The building itself is belongs to the city, and it was, everyone did a kind of its own architecture and so on. And then in the 2000s, it was just closed. And the alliance of the old market had the feeling this has to be the market, but we see that the market is not that contemporary that people will spend every day 1 hour to get their tomatoes from the market. So they kept the market as an activity, as an event, but they have the space in other times used as event space, conference space, and so on. And this mixed use makes it affordable for the alliance. So they have also restaurants there, they have a brewery there, so really diverse group, and everyone coexist can exist with their financial, with their economic model, and they are still the meeting and gathering place for the city. And their model is the important thing, or the most biggest need for the city, was that they couldn't sustain the building as a whole. So the city's need was to renovate it in a way that it's architectural valuable, let's say. And the alliance pays, I think, €1 rent or something like that, but has the obligation to renovate this site. So you create a win-win situation for the municipality, but also all the organizations and companies who are having affordable space to operate. In Netherlands, we also encountered a place which is very, very interesting. It was again a market. I said in the beginning, markets are a little bit our hot topic. And the market had also its issues, and it is located in a neighborhood which is very diverse in terms of communities, different nations, ethnicities, and so on. But also maybe because of the history of Rotterdam, it was more industrial city, and industry is not so big anymore in Europe. So there are a lot of people who are not having the chance to find adequate jobs. And the market cooperative had the idea to understand what kind of people live around the market, and kind of like put together what kind of skills they have at their hands in a walking distance. And one issue was that they had different cuisines from Asia, Africa, and so on. So their idea was to open up this cooperative to utilize the resources they have with the people they have in the neighborhood, and kind of really cater in literally to organizations, companies, and so on, this catering service. So the market is kind of like still the exchange place where the skills are kind of put on the market, and not so much the goods. This is the team of Afrikan Dervik. For such projects, a very important aspect is that you hardly can have a hierarchical organization. You can't rely on one leader who runs everything, who has the say over everything. You kind of have to make sure that the different needs are addressed and that people speak for themselves. And this diversity kind of creates an ecosystem which makes you as community distinguishable from others. So on long term, you have the capacity to run the project longer, because whenever one leader or one is exhausted, you still have a lot of others who can take place. So you work together in different fields, and you have much more bigger impact. Cascina Roccafranca in Turin is one of those examples where you created a whole hub with a lot of cultural activities, which is also supported by the city. And through the diverse use of the space, and with the collaboration with the other hubs together, you have a similar attention from the city. So whenever there is a program, so whenever you have to talk to the municipality, you are so many organizations already together. So you represent many opinions, and you know how it can work and how many people stand behind and so on. So it's a very fruitful start to this kind of collaborative management, collaborative ownership. Again, larger residencias, there are people who feel like they own the place, they have a right to this place. There are a lot of connections with arts organizations or other NGOs, which make this project so valuable and also visible enough as a partner to discuss for decision makers. And it's a part of Lisbon. So the blue areas in Lisbon are the areas which are priority neighborhoods. You have a lot, not enough chances for the people living there in terms of work, culture, and so on. So the city of Lisbon decided with the people, with the NGOs from ground, that they want to create a program which is directly addressing those areas. And Largo Residencias is one of those areas where they saw how it can be, how those areas can be improved. And in fact, the organization behind Largo Residencias has also other areas of those blues to have an impact, to work with the people together, to empower them, to think about social inclusive economic models. And it's also, we will see later, a model which is right now transferred to other 6 cities in Europe. If we have consistent experience and model stories where such things work, then we can also always bring those ideas and experiences to decision makers, and those policies can be then the multiplier. So such projects can be in many other regions too, not only the ones in which we are in contact. And this was very important for the decision-making structures in Cascina Roca Franca, that the cultural institutions and the city came to a structure where the NGOs have more rights at the board than the city. This needs a lot of trust that you can't do overnight. So it's a process, and it needs to be designed. And also in Vienna, we have two bigger areas. We had two bigger areas which were developed in the last 10 years. One was Aspern and one was Hauptbahnhof. In Hauptbahnhof, we restructured the main train station, and there was a lot of ground left over, which was then developed by various organizations. But the important thing here is that the city of Vienna said, okay, this is a new development area. We are bringing a lot of new buildings with new people who don't know each other. And very important is that we try to plant a few seeds in those development areas where there can be, where the goal is to be a community. And there were certain areas in those development areas which were dedicated only for co-housing. That means you had to have a community, an idea for the community, no matter if it's a bike friendly, diverse in like having different kind of partnerships as a life form. If you wanted to be especially ecological, if you wanted to be with solar panels and all those things. Important was that you had the community and a vision how this building could work and what kind of assets it would bring into this ground. So already in competition phase, there was the idea to bring their communities, and this is a commitment from the municipality to do it this way and not just think about who pays the most and we will build and get the most money, and that's our job, and we pay off the infrastructure. So it's a commitment to say this needs a community. We need communities, and then really empower such initiatives. I mentioned a few words. We are doing, as said, consultancy, but also projects, and we are happy to collect this knowledge and experience in certain medias. And I would like to share with you a few links to our projects, which I believe could be a source for your work. When we started with Eutropian, the main idea was from project spaces, we knew the funding is the hardest for initiatives to get started. But while we were writing this book with a lot of contribution from experts, we figured out next to funding, the second important part is organization. So this book was kind of the starting point for our company and official journey, and is available on our website. It has, I think, 60 stories from all around Europe, and you can download it from our website. And it explains how initiatives manage this starting phase with funding and organization, and might be useful for everyone. But then after we published the book, we figured out, okay, we can't publish every year a new book. There are initiatives like mushrooms popping all over the place, which is great. We supported that a lot. And therefore, we also started a magazine on voluntary basis. It's called Cooperative City. It has over 100 stories from around Europe. About initiatives, how do they do it, how do they build the community, how do they finance themselves, and how do they sustain their lives with those projects. So hope this is an important source for you too. In one URBEC project in which we are involved, the idea is to copy or to transfer the knowledge from Riga in running an NGO to other places, kind of like multiply the knowledge, the experience which was developed in Riga with this house. And the project is called Active NGOs. You can find it on URBEC website. It has a lot of insights how you can be active in your neighborhood and in your city, and how you can address the municipalities and be a collaborator in your neighborhood. I wanted to mention this one because we are just about to publish also a book about this experience, how an NGO can be active and multiply its impact. One bigger project we have is called Open Heritage. It's a collaboration with many organizations, I think 17, with Portugal, Germany, Netherlands, Hungary, and so on. A lot of countries are there. In this project, we started with the proper understanding of all case studies, which we found important to activate vacant places, in this case, which are also heritage. So there are 16 cases analyzed with various partners, and the links, the films we shared on the invitation for today were project analysis videos from this project. There are 16 cases which are studied, analyzed very, very detailed, and which are currently developed to models. And those models should then be the policy recommendation for the EU programs. On the website, openheritage.eu, you can find the long version of these case studies. You can also find all other videos like the ones shared in the invitation, but you also can find the labs. We have a lab in UK, in Germany, Hungary, Poland, Portugal, and Italy. And in those labs, we try to establish the process, to design the process, to make those heritage sites owned by the community and develop a program so they can sustain after the project finishes, which is which will be about in 2 years. So if you go on this website, you will be also having a lot of very detailed information how to activate places. Another project is Place City, where we have 2 case studies, one in Oslo and one in Vienna. It's not so much about a singular building, it's more about the public spaces. In Vienna, it's really a street, many streets, and in Oslo, it's the garden of a school, which is also in a prioritized neighborhood. In this project, as said, there are 2 case studies, but also there is a toolbox, and the toolbox gathers together descriptions how you can utilize placemaking for the development of a place, a public space, a street, an area. So we believe if you go on this website, you will be finding a lot of manuals how to utilize, how to make use of placemaking in your project. In JECO, Generative Commons, we are trying to create toolkits for initiatives, but also municipalities to have a legal document to start the collaboration. It's a platform where various initiatives commons are published as well. So you will find in this website the toolkit how to collaborate with municipalities or place owners, and also you can find a lot of commons from various countries. One invitation is, if you know of or if you have a comment, then just register on the website. And the second thing is, if you want to do something in this regards, try to utilize the toolkit or get in touch with the teams if you would like to hear more about it. One other project we are having is, I was mentioning Beep Zip program from Lisbon. This is actually the role model for one other Urbex project. So the aim is to learn from this Beep Zip program where you localize, where you need impact, where you need to act as a city. This model is then used by 6 other cities like in Den Haag and so on. And it's the process, how can we transfer something which grew locally in Lisbon to other places with a different context. So also this project, I would suggest you have a look if you are working in this field. Another thing is maybe you got the feeling that we are doing acupuncture throughout Europe with certain projects and so on, and that's true. There are regions which are more proactive in this field, and there are regions which are not so proactive. But we are getting started with Agora, which is going to be in the Danube region from Vienna onwards until Black Sea. So there are a handful or two handful municipalities in this region who want to actively involve their communities in the work of the municipality to fight vacancy. And I wanted to have it here because it's a kind of, even though the project didn't start it, I don't have any visuals and so on, but it's very important to see that we are not only points anymore, but we are going into the territory, into the region. So it feels like a blessing that the examples become pretty much mainstream slowly. In this work we are doing, the common challenges we are looking at are how can we can citizens citizen initiatives access space. So how is the organization, of spaces, does it belong to private? Are they open for discussions? How does the municipality deal with spaces which are vacant and so on? And what is the relationship between the initiative and public administration or private sector and so on? What are the legal frameworks, governance models, economic models? How do the initiatives fund the projects? And where are the regional differences which we have to take in consideration if we transfer knowledge from one space, one territory to another, from one country to another? So this kind of summarizes on which kind of challenges we are working regularly in our projects. And we try to be successful always, but sometimes we are not. And there are places which have own ecosystem, let's say, like informal organized communities sometimes are not ready or don't have the resources or the skills to be legalized. And Officine Zero was one of the projects where we wanted to have an impact and bring in all the information we knew from other places. We wanted them to find a solution with the owner of the place to be legally there and continue their work, because it was, as said, informal occupied place with a lot of creative people, a lot of nice people, a lot of artists, and a lot of handcrafted people. But it didn't happen. So sometimes this governing and this organizing to look forward to advance to the future is very, very difficult and not in the nature of the community. And so there are natural barriers to this model too. Another example, I mentioned the Play City project with the Oslo case and Vienna case. In Oslo, in fact, we had two grounds. One is the school and the other one is the prison. They are after the trees. It's a vacant prison. It's not used, and there is a community who would like to use it. It has a lot, very diverse group of people, a lot of artists and creatives, very often coming with the background, African background, and they see it as a space where they can develop their skills and advance in the society in Oslo. But even though there is interest from both parts, nothing happened after 1 year. So we kind of leave it to their pacing, but it's not going to happen in this project that we will have any impact in that. And sometimes these collaborations need a lot of time, and that we have to take also into consideration. So those are the two downs, kind of downs in working with the community. But the challenges are pretty clear because they are popping up in many, many different cities. And we believe we can handle this. And I've heard from an author a very lovely story, but I will not tell the whole story. Apparently, a kid was challenged to draw all birds in a farm. And it was like, how can I draw hundreds of birds? And the mother said, you concentrate on one bird after the other. So you draw bird by bird. And we started our work like this, one initiative after the other, one instance like the local, national, international after the other, one municipality after the other. And we hope that we can advance and work together and be the critical mass in this globe to advance this community-led development, because we believe our communities need it. And we have also proof that we need it. So when the lockdown started in March, we were a little bit puzzled. How shall we do all those things? How shall we manage? And then slowly after the first days in lockdown, we started hearing from our peers who have such initiatives that they are providing for the elderly, for the vulnerable people. They are teaching people in their kids in their neighborhood. They are shopping for each other and stuff like that. And we came up with the idea to use this lockdown creatively and bring the solidarity models from around the globe on screen and discuss, understand what are the key factors where solidarity is created or where people work together. And we had a lot of topics. We talked about mobility, public space, social inclusion, refugees, a lot of food. And we came to the conclusion, all the projects we try to support are doing very valuable job. They are the soul of the communities in which they live, and which kind of made us hopeful for the future that whatever was the gut feeling that those communities are so important got proven in the first crisis since we started our work. And we really believe that it's something we should force in different places in this earth. And the Cooperative City in quarantine is kind of finished. We had yesterday the last episode about social inclusion. We will have a final event next Friday where we try to kind of draw from the experience of the certain episodes and to address a few topics which we should keep in mind when we plan further buildings, further cities, further neighborhoods. So here also an invitation next week on Facebook on Cooperative City. If you want to discuss with us how we should plan the post-COVID cities, cooperative cities, just join us. But the bottom line is those communities are important pillars of our society. And if we are thinking that our designs can have any kind of impact, then be careful whom you empower with your work. And we hope you do work a lot with the communities, and maybe you want to share also your stories with us. And we believe we should work together if you believe in the same future like us. just get in touch with us. And here are my details. So thank you very much for listening. I don't know the time. I hope I was not too long. I'm here another half hour or so to answer your questions and hear about you, because this was a kind of a monologue now. Yeah, let's stay online and let me know what you think. I will stop sharing now.
Okay, thank you so much, Bahanur. It was a very informative presentation. Now we are going ahead to our Q&A session. So if you have a question, you can use the raise hand button, or you can type it down in the chat section. Maybe Jam can take over. Yeah, he's applauding.
Thank you, Jam.
Yes, I'm trying to. Yes, okay.
Unmute me. I was shut. Bahanur, I'd like to thank you on my own for this big presentation, which is difficult to grasp regarding the amount of work you have, you've produced so far. I don't know when did you exactly establish your institution, and how many years does this take? Because I am following, I know most of your publications, I mean the key publications like cooperative housing, as I mentioned, and here I think there was 50 or 60 projects, and most of them, some of the key projects were all you've already showed us. There are too many questions actually, but yeah, I mean,
then you have to invite me again.
as far as I see, what you are dealing with is not that conventional architectural practice like tabula rasa projects, zero start. You have a vacant, empty site. Somebody comes and hires you as an institution or as an architect. There is a program. Sometimes they ask to collaborate more on that, and then you begin. But the majority of the projects, maybe all of them, were actually unused buildings or buildings that are already there but underused, and most of them was the sort of waste space of capitalist city, and the capitalist city is creating its own waste space. So it's underused buildings, unused abandoned buildings, and collapsed communities also. So when I found very striking when you mentioned what you are doing as your facility as community management. It sounds new. We know lots of management types, but this is community management. And if I'm not mistaken, you are advising, you are imagining innovative programs for communities. You are leading them. You are designing new governance models for each specific projects, connecting actors in need, bringing them together, and establishing a network in order to realize those projects, which is great, which is the work itself, managing communities or restoring communities, maybe to be more accurate. You are restoring communities, which is the big problem at the moment. And when I look at the map of your I was going to ask a question, but I wanted to make a comment.
Okay.
That map.
Very good. It's very good to see how things come across, because yeah, it's good for me to know what I have to stress out more or explain more. Go on, Jeb.
What upset me was that when I look at your publications and the map of the projects, it's basically European community boundaries, and Istanbul is on the periphery, And there is also only one project, which is we call an old Greek school in Istanbul, how to reuse that building, which we are using the building now for biennales at the moment. It's Rum Okulu, we call it. It is in your publications, but it's only one. So okay, I'm coming to my question. How do you initiate a project? I mean, sometimes a community representative comes, or sometimes you define a problem and do you initiate a project, or it's both? It might be both. This is my question, because you also need to finance yourself as an institution, and it is simply where that money comes from.
How do we fund ourselves, right?
Yes, how do you finance yourself? It's a key issue, I think. But as far as I see from how to founding the cooperative city, you are explaining thoroughly the resources, the ethical banks, how to collect money,
outsourcing and everything. Yeah.
Outsourcing. Yeah, there are too many different resources, and you are using mainly, I think, European Union resources, and it is also giving support for your infrastructure. But here, what's going to happen here if you are not a part of European community or European Union?
So when we started it was around 2010 when I got to know Wonderland, where I was also writing the papers for the competitions, and the competitions were basically made in collaboration with local actors, like the local community. I remember when I met the first time Levente, the call was for Cluj in Romania. You have their very big vacant city half, I would say, because the industry is not there since Romania is not behind the Iron Curtain anymore. So the whole industrial structure is so outdated, so big, that it's vacant, and there are so many owners, because everyone was hoping, oh, now we are not communists anymore, so we will make a lot of profit. So there are a lot of owners, and it was so difficult to bring them together. But this is a role model also for all the projects we are doing. There was a community reaching out to Wonderland back then, but nowadays also Eutropian, who wanted to collect ideas and kind of develop a roadmap together with the models which work. And we made the call, and Levente and Roland and a lot of people applied for it. And we met, I saw the first time Levente in Budapest. And we did our workshop and were drafting the process, how this whole thing could work by itself. And after the second day, we tried to involve always the public in those events, so people who are local know what we are talking about and can be the community which we are talking about. And then we had a team from Netherlands, and they said, we have also the vacancy problem, 2008 economic crisis and so on. And our government decided, or the municipality decided, to tax everything what is vacant. So the first year is okay, you try to find a renter. But the second year you start with 10% tax on the vacancy. In the second year it's 20, and then the owner has to rent also for lower prices. And the Romanians were like, what do you do in the West? And I was like, we do it also in Vienna. So they were like, if we ever would go to the municipality and say, we want to tax vacancy, they would say, no, we are not going back to communism. So this collaboration to see by practice how things are done in other places, we found so valuable, which was the founding idea for the company. We are a small group. We don't need too much funds because we are not the ones who are the people who run the community. So we can tell a lot of stories. We can extract a lot of models from running examples and not running examples, which we try to communicate through projects and so on. But very often the communities or people who want to do something approach us, and then we try to find something. For instance, in Vienna, there is a vacant farmstead, where a lot of people who want to live alternatively, who want to create their own energy, they want to have alternative mobility, they want to grow their food on the walls of the building and so on. The community is already there, and what they need is this guidance through the start, also help in applying for funds, and being mediator between, perhaps in this case, the city is the owner of the farmstead and the community, to find a common ground how this collaboration can work. So this mediation and so on, we are not classical planners, so we don't need a lot to run, but we need, as you said. And most of our projects are financed by the EU organizations, programs, but there are also programs which are not specifically only for Europe. There is the World Bank and so on. GPI also has a collaboration with Turkey. So then in that case, you would have to work with TÜBİTAK, I think. That was my last information. So we also try sometimes to access people which we believe have a future also in Turkey, not successfully so far. So again, invitation, get in touch. It's not a lot. I don't want to lie to you. It's not the same resources like you have in Europe, but there are funds which are also available for Turkish organizations. And there is one thing working better in Turkey than in Europe or in Austria, let's be specific, because the funding of the national funding and so on is all right, pretty good compared to Turkey. There is this full sponsorship and so on, not so developed in the head of people. So I could imagine that there would be also enough organizations who want to do something good, who also development of sites, a settlement and so on. They also need communities like Vienna did with the co-housing project, like preferring co-housing over the other kind of development. So I'm totally aware it's not the same resources like in Europe, but there is an ecosystem in any country, and it's very important to pull at the same strings, to work together, to understand each other's needs, and to create kind of win-win situations for the owner of the place or the ground, for the people who want to be active, long-term commitment, and so on. For instance, in Berlin, there are these special contracts which meanwhile also allow to lease or have a contract with the city over 100 years. And if you get a space as a community for 100 years, you do something else with the place than if you get it only for 3 years. So you invest differently, you maintain it differently, you think in longer terms. So it's a process where we need a lot of discourse, I believe. So it might be that a lot of things are right now not possible in Turkey or in Istanbul, but it's very important that you have common discourses like these episodes of Aura, where you exchange ideas and where you reach out to people who are not architects, but place owners or creatives who want to do something. And then if we have a challenge, everyone comes to the table with an idea and something happens. And in some projects, they had no funding at all from institutions, nation or so. They've just came to the conclusion, okay, we will have a cafe with our creative offices and spaces and cultural activities, and the cafe pays into the rent, so the others have cheaper or for free spaces. So it's possible if we have aware people who know what they want and who are clear about who is going to profit. If the whole concept is based on this, like, let's start, and if it goes well, then maybe I will kick you out, might be not the right approach. So it's very important that we understand also the risks of such collaborations, but I believe it's possible, but not as easy as everywhere, I would say.
Yes.
Does that?
Yeah. We have lots of projects to collaborate, actually. What puts in my mind is that okay, I don't want to I don't want to be the one always speaking. So we might have some other questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I'm just gonna call out Rengin. Rengin, can you? Yeah, I'm just gonna unmute you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. It was a very exciting presentation for us, for me, because you are doing a job in my dream job, maybe, I should say. I hope one day I will have the opportunity to work with you. I am currently working on the participatory architecture and the social role of architecture and other roles of architecture in Istanbul, in Turkey. I know these are few projects in the world just like that, but I believe they are stronger than their quantities. And Cemilhan asked most of what I wonder, but I wonder this also. What kind of process is followed in the selection of places in all these projects? Yeah, do people reach you, or do you go to them with a project? The similar works in Turkey, and the Turkish groups mostly go to the region with a project that I know, but the locals mostly realize the under construction phase. And I had an experience like that in Istanbul, Kadıköy. We worked 5 or 6 teams, architectural teams together, and we did a regeneration of the city space, and we did make a bench or something like that, and we worked with Diego. We worked the Todo por la Praxis, maybe you know. They are from Madrid, and he said he was knocking on the door by door, and asking what they need, and they. I also wonder what your method is. So the methods change according to the places or to projects, or are there methods in here? Thank you. My English.
Thank you, Rengin. That was a very interesting question. And that was a bit difficult because actually you can start the process from wherever you want. Important is the goal, the vision, what you have. And if you believe in the community thing, and we know it's not for everyone, There are people who prefer to have their private lives. They are exhausted because they work 12 hours with the traffics and so on. So they don't have the space, time, resources for community-ing. We are all aware of that, which brings us again to the city planning issue. Very often, we believe that the best point to start is always the community, the actual people who are supposed to benefit, who are supposed to live, work in this whole structure. But starting from there is, let's say, a very long process and very time-consuming process. And sometimes people are not aware of this, and that's the reason, because it's lengthy procedure, it might not work to your benefits. There are also a lot of cases where there is already community, a vague idea, and so on. And in the collaboration, in the talks and so on, we figure out what are the aspects which are not considered and what they forget, what to develop before they address a municipality and so on. With the placemaking, we are believing that you can use these placemaking methods from master plan until the final, actually even further, also for adaptation of cities and planning and houses and structures and so on. So we believe there is no wrong timing in doing this. It's more to have the vision, the common understanding what community is and how that could work. Because sometimes also people feel like, yeah, this is a community space, why should it cost something and stuff like that. So it's a lengthy process and different in every society and so on. We came to the conclusion that one important aspect is that you need from the community constructive people. That might be one person, that might be a handful person. Very often those people are people who are used to design processes, who know that you have to do something one step, one bird after the other bird. Because very often, if you are the architect, the consultant or so, you come, you do your hours, you go, and the community thinks their things. So if there are worries, they will be amplified, multiplied. If there are expectations, they are, and you never get the idea what is happening when you leave the site. So we saw that people who, communities who have a kind of a management feeling or process feeling are very good to start. And you also need a lot of people who need social skills, addressing the topics which are in the community, the fears and so on, who bring those things to the foreground, which would be normally not addressed. But our work, on the other hand, because we are doing this, bringing together the owners, it doesn't matter if it's municipality or the state even, with the people who want to use it together, we do not design anymore. So I don't have a CAD program on my computer since over 8 years. So we are designing the process and not the buildings anymore. And this is also something which we have to ask ourselves. If we go towards community, how much do we want to keep on board of our skills and of our professions? The thing what you do, for instance, a lot. Some architects, because there was the opportunity by the city that you could build with communities, it gave also a boom to co-housing projects. And there is a group of architects and also building companies who are specialized on this. And they, for instance, additionally in Austria, everything is the honorary for architecture services are defined, like how much it costs. And those businesses who do extra this community development thing, they are entitled to also charge this service. So it's a kind of social entrepreneurship, actually, where you can bring a lot of social knowledge and social feeling into your project, and you can also charge this. And it's important that this is addressed with the owners and building companies and so on. So if there is not enough possibility there, then it's the challenge. And if you know the challenge, then you can already start to design the process that the challenge can be overcome. Does that help somehow? Seda, any other questions?
I think she's thinking, but we couldn't hear. Okay. Next, Cemre Ceren Asarda. She's raising her hand. Can you
Hi,
hear
Cemre.
Hello. Hello, Bahanur and everyone. Thank you very much for this presentation. It was very much inspirational for me. I couldn't stop myself sharing our project. And I'm not in a good environment right now. I hope my technology is enough to reach you right now. So I'm from Bodrum. I don't know if you know Turkey well, but it's in the southwest coast. It's a very, very popular town in Turkey. It's a touristical town, and it's my hometown at the same time. I'm a cultural manager, and I can call myself a community weaver because I started a community in Bodrum who are from different sectors, young people, and we are a social enterprise, legal social enterprise now, named Comunite Bodrum. And we are revitalizing the oldest cinema venue in the 90s in Bodrum, which is vacant since then, into a cultural hub, a creative space for co-creation and being together for community building activities for the people who lives in this town. So that is why this presentation was very much inspirational, especially in this very difficult times of COVID-19, because we had to stop our working for a while, and it sometimes really demotivates us to continue. And I wanted to share this because I really wanted to be in touch later with you. I know Levente in person because of through Bosch Alumni Network also. But I didn't know exactly that today you were representing the same initiative together. I didn't know that. Sorry, because I'm a very newcomer in placemaking. So we're trying what we're doing as a community and, revitalizing the old cinema. What I would like to ask to you is about partnerships, actually, because this vacant cinema, it's part of a boutique hotel, which is running still. It's in downstairs in the boutique hotel, but it's empty and it's not in use. And the owners are in the private sector, and they are very open to collaborate with us, and they just accepted to finance the revitalization with our own imagination on architectural design. So in our group, we have architects and sustainable developers and local makers like me as cultural manager and stuff. So we designed the project and they're financing it. But of course, because of COVID-19, they had to stop a bit and see what's going on, and they are hesitating to continue. We also have, we went to the municipality and they are very open as well. But my question is related with the trust between these different sectors, like municipality and the private sector and the NGO. So even if these people or these sectors are open to collaborate, if they don't know the culture of this collaboration and placemaking and community development, it's not easy to convince them like this is a great idea or something. So what would you say related to the building the trust between different sectors to continue It's a very wide question, sorry about that, but it's a very hot topic right now for us to, convince our stakeholders to continue, because it will be really great after the COVID-19 to bring people together for social impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Cemre. It's very nice to hear about Bodrum and that you have your initiative there. I really love to hear that. Perhaps you can reach out and maybe we can at least write about your community. The trust starts with trusting, as communication starts with communicating. So it's very often the case that we believe that it should be visible what we think, what our attempts or what our visions and so on is, and it's very important to understand, to listen. And this is, since you are into placemaking, this is one of the first steps, to listen to the place, to the people, what is needed. And the second important thing is to be willing to create a situation which is win-win for the people at the table. And if we do not manage this, then people feel like they are giving more than they are receiving, and then they are willing, their commitment will be not long-lasting. And the third thing is explaining or showing the scenario how it could be. So if you feel like you don't have, you are not heard by the other party, it's very good thing to use other methods to explain what you want to create there. And there are so many examples already. And as said, the example from Romania, if the Romanians suggest we should tax vacancy, then it's communism. If Netherlandish organization comes and we do it and it's fine, it's a Western country, then it's something different. You are entitled with your background and with the experience you have to propose things, and you are believed or not. So therefore, I would suggest that you find partners in crime and also show examples, like as that, for instance, Open Heritage. We created there 16 videos from different places. It's a cinema, just do a pop-up cinema and explain and show how this community cinema could work. And maybe you find even more people who would join you, or you would, at least you would have a vocabulary, what people like and what people not like. So talking about visions is very important. It's a very, I think this COVID thing was in a way a present, even though for economic reasons it will have a lot of aftermath, but it should be perceived as a gift to think about things and make decisions and be clear about our visions and how we want to do stuff. And if you couldn't implement your project as you planned it, that means also a new opportunity. Maybe you should consider other partnerships, other contents, other timelines, other, not so much the tourism sector, because this is one of the sectors which will be hit, and it already shows the problems with the tourism sector, and Bodrum is the mecca in a way for tourism. So maybe you test what you want to do potentially with the visitors of Bodrum, with the locals, and where you create these connections and the network, the local community, before you address visitors to Bodrum. So I think the parameters changed, But if you have the wish and a group of people and the willpower of people, just do it. Just do a pop-up version, just do a lighter version. It has to be a culture so it can survive. So as soon as you start, you will know what is possible, what's not. And so just do it.
Thank you very much. We never stopped, actually. I would like to avoid any misunderstandings, because our partnerships are still growing with our private sector and the municipality. But I was just wondering about the culture and how to explain them the culture of placemaking and stuff, because it's a huge subject to teach to other people. But this is a closing from my side. I mean, thank you for
doing with the people. You can do placemaking with the people, and as soon as they know what they can change by simply doing, participating, discussing, and so on, just make dinners, screenings, and whatever. So as soon as you have this vision shared and owned by many people, you will have more power to continue. I didn't assume that you stopped the community thing, but I had the feeling that the revitalization a bit stopped, and maybe the collaboration with the municipality, because a lot of municipalities, no matter if they are in the US or in Europe, they know that they will earn less, and they still have to provide a lot of services to the citizens and also visitors in Bodrum's case. So why not sharing the burden of them and approaching them and creating this win situation that they really need you with their challenges. So talking and doing, and with the people, just try starting placemaking process so they own the place, that they are a part of it, would be my
Thank you very much. I will let you know more about it later. I don't want to take more time here. Thanks a lot for everyone.
Thank you, Demir. Seda, there is a question from Aykut.
Yes, in the chat. Would you like to read it? Okay.
How do you see the twin cities projects, even twin countries, to share and create new valued areas between them, even though mobility of people getting limited? What would you like to share cross-border projects? Thank you. As said in the examples, this knowledge transfer and experience transfer is something which advances us since thousands of years. It's nothing we invented. We have to learn about this. And I mean, Turkey was on the Silk Road and profited a lot from this, bringing ideas, exchanging, transferring knowledge, and so on. So it works since a lot of time, so we have to work together. And in case of twin cities, twin countries partnering municipalities, it's possible that you can do the process and get reflection, first of all, but also see from the distance how do the others manage their process. So whenever there is the possibility to collaborate, great. And at least in Europe, I know Turkey had always a special situation with its neighbors, but maybe we don't think so much about neighboring countries, but neighboring communities. So it can be even the city with the rural area around it, which also needs a little bit mediation. So we have those borders, we created them everywhere, and whenever we overcome them, we get a new mix of knowledge, experience, but also potential to bring resources together. Like we are collaborating with the Innovation in Politics organization, and they are doing a survey right now to understand what are the most important pressing challenges in the second half in 2020. And if we know that they all have to spend a lot of time, money in digitalization, for instance, and you don't have the resources, why not teaming up, making the digitalization with someone else together, and you save a lot of brain power and also resources to implement things. So it's very important. All those limitations are temporary, and there are a lot of possibilities to exchange. We are experiencing it since 3 months. We were building in the last 10 years, especially since the financial crisis, communities which were too dependent on tourism. This came to a halt now, so we have to work other things out, and now we have more chances with community, and we have to utilize the moment for our nations or for our communities to advance this. And if we miss this opportunity, maybe we will get another one. We don't know.
Do we have any questions? Okay. I think that's about it for the question part. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
Accepting our invitation. Yeah, we have another applause.
Thank you, Rengin.
Yeah. Maybe, Jan, would you like to add anything else in the end? No?
Enough.
No, nothing.
Give me a break.
Not enough.
See you again and hopefully collaborate. It's a big network issue. Aura will be a part of it, I'm sure, and other institutions, local authorities. So such dialogues and activities like we did today, I think will build up and make things much more hopeful in the future. So I think that we will be collaborating, not in the very near future, not necessarily, but somehow, sometime. So it was great in that sense also, not only the presentation, but to have in touch with Urbact, Eutropian. The world is a network world after all. So, okay, thanks again. We appreciate your wealthy, heavy presentation. There was too many examples, but I recommend publications. It's open source, as you mentioned. I suggest everybody in the studio to take a look at them. There are lots of things, quite available knowledge in there.
Thank you once more for the invitation, and it was my first presentation to Turkey. I enjoyed it a lot, and yeah, also nice to hear that there are co-housing, participative planning organizations, and also like from Bodrum that there are initiatives. So we should have more examples from Turkey. So reach out and let's keep in touch whenever you have the feeling.
Regards to Levente, Poyak, to Budapest and Vienna also.
Okay. And yeah, maybe you want to also subscribe to our newsletters, either from Cooperative City or from Eutropian. And maybe there are events where we can encounter in person or digitally. I don't mind anymore. But yeah, there are for sure possibilities to exchange very loosely, but also we can collaborate whenever you feel like there is something where we can contribute. And other than that, we would be happy to tell your story too to other people. And one last thing, Turkey is a very special place. So are a lot of places, or every place is special to some people, but you are not alone. There are a lot of countries, nations, communities which have even more difficult situation. So I don't believe that that the limitations which are obvious should hinder us to do what we believe is the right thing to do. And it doesn't have to be at all political. It can if we want to serve people, and I believe as architects, urban planners, this is a servant job, then we should live to our best and do the best work we imagine. And I hope that you are leading the process, so that you are in the end proud of your work, and maybe not all, but some. So try, and even little birds are birds, so don't be shy about your achievements, and don't be too selective. So even practice participation, like in the office, is a way of changing things, even if you can't do it with your project owners, like the owner of the place or the building company and so on. So bird by bird, we can do this together.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, it was
Thank
very
you.
inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.